Welcome, everyone. We will get started in a couple minutes once everybody is on Zoom. We have people coming in. We should have a very good crowd today. Great webinar. It's one of our favorites and probably yours too. I'm going to go ahead and welcome everyone again and kind of get started with some icebreakers so you can start the conversation going in the chat. Welcome to our November Tobacco Free Tuesday webinar. I'm Gina Roberts. I'm a regional coordinator with the Virginia Tobacco Control Program. We have the other regional coordinators on here as well. I'm sure you recognize them from every month. Tiffany Eustace is in the Northwest region. Nicole Mann is in the Eastern region, and Natalie Gospodinoff is in the Northern region. And I work in the Southwest region. So we're happy that you are joining us today. We have a very, very special webinar from people's quit journeys. So the other people on the screen will be introduced shortly, but a couple questions to just have a little fun. It's Thanksgiving time next week. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. A couple things. And you can answer one, both, or none, whichever you prefer, but kind of get the chat started. If you had to pick between being at a Thanksgiving parade or a Thanksgiving football game, which one would you pick and why? So would you like to go to the Macy's Day Parade in New York City or any other parade for Thanksgiving, or a football game that may be on in the afternoon? Neither. JD, yes. I'm happy in my home watching on television, right? Which one would you pick? Parade, yes, love the energy and costumes. Parade, definitely. So keep putting them in there. Parade, Thanksgiving Day parade, or Thanksgiving Day football game, or watching both at home in the comfort of your home. And the second question I have, and you can keep as people jump on, we are just putting, would you rather go to a Thanksgiving Day parade or a Thanksgiving Day football game? And then the second question is, what is the worst Thanksgiving food you've ever had? What is the worst Thanksgiving food you've ever had? And I'm putting that one in there from my daughter. We're doing Thanksgiving a little bit different this year. We're doing a Brunswick stew. And when we told my daughter that, she's like, yes, I don't like turkey and dressing. I never have. And I'm like, you don't? So we're kind of flipping Thanksgiving this year and doing a stew. So what is the worst Thanksgiving food you have ever had? Let me see. Overcooked turkey, asparagus wrapped in bacon. Sounds good, but did not turn out good. Keep putting them in there. We love to kind of hear a little bit more about who's on the call. Please put your name in there as well. But I'm going to go ahead. We have a very special webinar today. It's where people will be sharing their quit journeys, right? And it's really why we do what we do is to help people quit using tobacco. And we all know it's a journey, right? It may not be one day that you just wake up and say, I'm putting the cigarettes or I'm putting the smokeless tobacco down or I'm putting the vapes down. It's a journey. And so we're going to hear about the journey. We have two people on right now. We may have a couple more join us as the webinar continues on. But I'm going to introduce Neely Dahl, who I don't think really needs to be introduced because she's been a part of our family for so long. And she's done so much for our program. So thank you, Neely. But Neely has been in public health for over 20 years. She's had the opportunity to work in Belize, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and Vanuatu, South Pacific. Her passion for helping people live a tobacco-free life stems from her being a former smoker herself, right? And you've heard her journey as well, and I'm sure she'll talk about that today. Neely has arrived at the University of Virginia's Emily Currick Comprehensive Cancer Center's tobacco treatment program after working with our program within the Blue Ridge Health District. Neely, thank you. I cannot say thank you enough for coming every year and doing this for us. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our other guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just feel so honored and blessed that you guys keep asking me back. So it must mean I'm doing a good job on this. And yes, believe it or not, this week marks 9 years quit for me. And so it's a journey, and there's definitely moments where you still struggle going, darn, I just really want that cigarette. And then you just have to have this conversation with yourself. And so I'm super excited to have two people here with us this morning. And if when I say your name, just take yourself off of mute and then just go ahead and wave. And then we'll just start diving in. I definitely know that changing any type of behavior, a routine, a habit, an addiction can be challenging for a lot of us, but it is definitely doable. And I think today we'll be able to help some people get started on their journey or push them all the way to the end through the finish line. So I want to thank our two panelists this morning. One is Caroline. She is coming to us from VCU and a cigarette smoker, former. And we have Mindy. Mindy is, I believe, retired military, Army. Thank you for your service. And also a smoker, former smoker. Super excited to have both of you here today, and I'm hoping, crossing fingers, we'll get a couple more people online. They might be having some IT issues, which is normal, right? That's always seems to be normal. Well, let's get started, and let me just ask, and either Caroline, like, how many months or years now have you been quit?
Sure, I'll start. I had to go back and calculate. It's been a while. It's I want to say I actually don't know the exact day or month that it happened, but let's say somewhere in 2009, because it's when started dating my partner, now husband, and I know when that happened. So it wasn't immediate, so around 15 years. But I will say I've had some slips. And of course, that was not the start of my quit journey. I started trying to quit way before then. But had challenges, slips along the way. And even, since 2009, I've had some slips here and there, but managed to, keep it going. And now with kids in my life, I have a lot more new inspirations that keep me tobacco free.
Nice. And what about you, Mindy? How long has it been for you?
I like to think it's been a year with a slip up in January, February. So if you count that, then it's 8 months. But I like to think a year.
Right. And that's one of the things that we say. Sorry, I just got a text from one of our participants. Um, that's one of the things that I always like to say is, look, if you have a slip, right, there's no exact linear motion to quitting. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, there's going to be days that you kind of feel like you're slipping back. But as long as you keep moving forward and learning from those slips, and being able to reflect on why, then we're able to move forward with different strategies and plans. So I agree, Mindy, we're going to count that as a year. Both of you guys said something really important is slips, right? We can slip back. It can happen. Share with me, Mindy, just share with me a little bit what was going on and how you slipped, and then how you were able to pick it up and keep moving forward.
Okay, so it was like holiday season. It was the first year that my partner's mom had been passed, and then he had some health issues come up. So it was me swinging, wrapping all the presents for 3 kids, and it was just, whew, it was a lot. And then like having to take care of him. So I went back to smoke, and it's kind of like a take your mind off of it kind of moment.
Yeah. Take your mind off
And
of
then
it.
I was like, I need to straighten myself back out because I was doing really well. And
Yeah.
then I did. And it was so much easier putting them down after the slip than it was initially, which was quite a surprise.
And a lot of people have a difficult time the second, if they've had a slip and trying to quit the second time. So we're going to tap into that thought there because I think that's a lot to do with the mindset and your journey, the foundation that you had laid prior to quitting. I think that has a lot to do too. Yeah. What about you, Carolyn?
Yeah, thinking about one of the slips that I had, there's one that sticks out to me because I went on a trip with my college friends and was in a different city and having lots of fun. And one of them, I think a few of them still smoked. And I just kind of fell into those old habits. And I remember picking it up and I remember thinking, oh, this tastes terrible. Why would I do this? Why did I do this for so long? But I still smoked. And then I noticed, and I literally noticed every time I smoked, it tasted a little better and it didn't taste as bad. And that's what I was thinking about that moment. I was like, huh. So that's what it does over time, just one by one, it starts to taste good again.
Right.
But I was like, wow, but it stuck with me that moment. And then thankfully, I think when I got home, I think I may have smoked a little bit more, but then, put them down again and, tried again.
Try it again.
Hopeful for that point when it didn't taste good anymore.
Right. And so you had a slip, continued for a bit, both of you, and then what was it that helped you finally? Because it does, the more that you kind of one leads to two, two leads to three, and it can kind of snowball into it. For each of you, when you realize you're kind of back down on that little journey, what worked for you to get back to quit? Caroline?
Good question. I think part of it is very environmental for me. So not being around people smoking, and at that time I was in graduate school. I was studying tobacco products and how they harm people, or what do we need to know to help people quit or to create better policies so that it's easier for people not to smoke. And so I think I was very lucky to be in that kind of space. So when I got back, and I'd always felt, even though I've been smoking throughout this time I've been in grad school and on this academic journey, I think just again, having been quit before, I was able to remind myself, hey, I can do this. I don't need these. Let's throw them away, right? Get them out of my space. It made it a lot easier.
Yeah. What about you, Mindy?
So going back to being quit after having my little slip up, really, I just had to think about why I wanted to quit and what my drive was previously and each time before that I had tried to quit. So I was like, I can stay there and sit outside and smoke with my boyfriend and just chain smoke. Yeah, that's great. But what else could I be doing? I could be doing so much more. And I have.
Yeah. It's you bring up a really good point because when you really calculate the time spent smoking and worrying about making sure where you have enough cigarettes and if you're in a public or social area, where can I go find a place to smoke? Yeah, it's just a lot of time spent. And so I think a lot of people that I work with that are on their quit journeys, when they do quit, like you, Mindy, it's like it opens up all this extra time that they never realize, like, wow, I could be doing so many other things, actions, activities. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And so now that you guys are both quit, feeling strong with it, what was some immediate physical changes that you noticed in your body and what were some long-term changes that you've noticed with your body? I can share just a little bit with mine was I noticed that I was constantly coughing, right? And I never really paid attention to it. But when I was on the phone for an interview, my father was in the room and he goes, Neely, do you realize how much you're coughing? And I was like, no. And so I was like, wow, okay. And then I also had chest pain. Like I'd push my chest and it'd be painful. It would hurt. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
this isn't a good sign. So when I quit, I know that my coughing stopped and my pain pushing down on my chest no longer hurt anymore. So those for me was two positives. What about you guys? What have you noticed with your body? Mindy?
Well, for me, that's kind of like a slippery slope because I don't really notice anything different. But through my cancer journey, like I've had symptoms of that. So it's really hard for me to judge what was this and what was that
Got
and
it.
what improved because of this or that. So I
Got it.
wish I had something to give you there.
Did your sense of smell did that change at all? Just something simple as smell or taste?
Not that I noticed.
Okay,
I did notice that now whenever I smell cigarette smoke, it stinks. But before I didn't notice it. I think it's just because like I was used to it.
right.
But now if I'm around somebody that just smokes, it's like, oh, that's what it smells like. It's like I spent 17 years and I didn't know this is what it smelled like.
Yeah,
But yeah, other than that, nothing,
nice.
which is weird. But
That's your journey.
yep.
What
Yeah,
about you?
maybe you'll notice things later. It took me, I noticed that one of the things relate similar to you, Neely. I used to get this really bad respiratory kind of sickness in the beginning of the summer, always like, and I was like, I didn't realize it until I quit that that likely was because of my smoking, because something going on with allergies or something in the springtime, but it would last for like 2 months. Like I just would be coughing or having some like just kind of nasty symptoms. And all of a sudden that I don't do that. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yes, I can totally relate. I remember every
Mhm.
time the seasons would change, I'd get some sort of chest infection. Something that took a couple months to go away. Yeah. And I too now during the season changes, I don't have those issues anymore. So the great thing is when we quit, our body wants to start healing right away. And that's just the amazing thing. Um, Oh, somebody said that when they quit vaping, they noticed the acne in their skin changed. And I've actually had another vapor that was unable to join us today, but she said she also, when she quit vaping, she noticed that her skin became so much better. And I just thought, wow, that's maybe there's something going on there. All right. Um,
Yeah.
So, when you were on your quit journey, and can you share with me a little bit of some of the strategies when you were like, okay, I'm really going to work on this? How did you do it? Did you use any products like the nicotine replacement therapy, patches, gum, lozenges, nasal spray, or any of the medications? Chantix or varenicline is the generic term or Wellbutrin. So I just opened. Did you use any of the FDA approved products? Carolyn.
So I did not. I definitely remember reading about quitting, support and how to prepare yourself for those quit dates, getting rid of all the things, getting rid of the triggers and thinking about your triggers, both people and environments. But for me, the the strategy that worked the best for me was cutting it down and cutting out cigarettes, places where I really love to smoke first, or I guess first I started with places it was easiest to cut down or cut out. Like I used to smoke in my room, or like indoors, which is hard to believe. And now, and smoking in the car, on the phone, after eating, like all these little places and parts until I got to the space where I only smoked on the weekends, social situations. That was my hardest place to quit for the long, and it's where I smoked for a very long time, in just those places. But I think if I could go back in time, I probably would have used some NRT because that would have been perfect for me in those places. I wish I used the gum or a lozenge, something to, to give me that relief when I was craving. And
Right.
maybe I would have quit earlier if I had used something like that.
Yeah, yeah, makes complete sense. What about you, Mindy?
I did use the gum, not very often. Probably could have used a little bit more. And then I'd also tried the lozenges. Um, I predominantly used those the initial quit, but at the second quit, I was like, is it going to take me longer to really feel quit because I'm replacing the nicotine? So it's not like I really quit doing the nicotine. I've still
Right.
got it. So the second time, I just kind of stopped. And that was a doozy because I was also working on my car and it was cold outside. And oh, yeah, perfect time to quit.
Right. And and oftentimes that I notice that there's a lot of people that do not use the nicotine replacement therapy to its full advantage. I think there's a lot of people that use just the patch or just the gum, and people forget that you can do combination therapy. And that's where you wear the patch, and that's your long-term reliever. It's releasing nicotine, it's feeding those receptors in our brain that wants it. And then throughout the day, you can use your quick relievers, the nicotine gum, the lozenge, or the nasal spray. And oftentimes people don't realize that you're not supposed to chew the gum like normal gum, right? You pop it in
Yep.
your mouth, you chew it, you get it soft and gooey, and then you park it. You just let it sit there. When you were using the gum, did you notice that tingly sensation, Mindy, when it was sitting there?
Yep.
Yep. So that tingly sensation is the nicotine kind of getting absorbed through the mucus layers of your mouth. And so I often encourage a lot of my patients they can use a total of 24 pieces of gum and or lozenges a day. So if you think about it, if you're a pack-a-day smoker, and you're working on changing behavior change, like in the car or after a meal, you can pop in a piece of gum or lozenge and know that that gives you that little bit of kick, helps you release, and then redirect the brain, right? A lot of it is a brain game, playing some games with our brain. Yeah. What were some of the biggest barriers to your quit? I know, Caroline, you talked about really reducing and finding those moments, those triggers, and start reducing down. And your big barrier was social situations. But any other big barriers that you're like, oh, this is so hard?
Probably for me was, this idea, thinking about just like conceptually, this idea that I have time, I can quit later, you know,
Right.
not right now, or it's not urgent. Even though I knew that it was going to get harder and harder the longer I continued to smoke. Um, and so, yeah, that lack of urgency, I think was another important barrier for
Especially
me.
when we're young, right? When we're young, we're
Mhm.
invincible, and we just, we don't think about the long-term consequences of continuing. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I guess also you're surrounded by folks maybe who, are also in that space. And so maybe you don't hear or see about the consequences later, which is, as I got older, I know I have multiple friends and my own family members who started to suffer from the consequences of smoking, early death, early cancer diagnoses, COPD. And like it's so apparent to me now, or it started to become so apparent to me that every person I knew who used tobacco in their later life had health problems. Um, but earlier on, I wasn't really seeing that or aware of that.
Yeah, true.
Sad that you kind of have to wait to see.
What about you, Mindy?
And I agree with what she was saying about seeing as you get older and your family members and friends get older, you start to see like, oh, you cough a lot. Like you might want to get that cough checked out. And then they come back and they're like, oh yeah, I've got mild emphysema. It's like, oh no.
Right.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to fall down that path. I don't want to be on oxygen when I'm 60. things of that nature.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you
And
bring up a really good point too. I think there's a lot of individuals out there that I know I always encourage everybody to go get their lung cancer screening. I think that is so key because research has shown that if you can catch it early, it's easy to treat and survivorship is high. And so I always encourage everybody to get their lung cancer screening. It's painless and it's easy. It's a little nerve-wracking in the beginning, right? Because you never quite know, but when you get the results back, you're like, okay, I got this. I got this. So what was your big barrier, Mindy, on that first quit? Was there anything really, I know your boyfriend smoked, so you're kind of around it. Any other big barriers, even internally within yourself?
yeah, having 3 kids living at the house, that's definitely one of them, especially whenever my way of coping with dealing with small people attitude was for me to go outside and take my little break, and I'd smoke and chill out, and then I'd come back inside and carry on.
Right, right.
So finding ways to mentally help myself in situations like that and not have a cigarette to be my scapegoat was really a difficult thing for me.
Oh, you put the nail on the head. I think probably 99% of people that smoke use it as a coping mechanism in one form or fashion. It could be coping for stress, depression, anxiety, you name it. That's a generation we came from a generation where we weren't taught healthy coping skills. And so oftentimes the key to any quit journey is, like you said, identifying when and why you want to smoke, right? Really peeling back that layers of the onion and then being able to go, okay, I know that my kids can really get stressed and stressing me out, and I need to come up with a better coping mechanism. Did you, and real quick, I know that in the chat, for those of you that might have not seen it, there's a map, a link to where you can get your lung cancer screening. I encourage everybody to try it. If you haven't done so already, take a look. And if not, reach out to the team and we'll help you get connected in one form or fashion. Um,
Mindy just reminded me about, I used to keep an emergency pack of cigarettes in my freezer. I don't know if anyone else used to do that. Or when something really stressful happened. I thought that was a key thing I needed in my life, just in case.
I have a question. Having that there, because there's a lot of people that it's their security blanket. Even though they've quit, they're like, I still need it just in case. When were you able to mentally let go of that pack?
I have a memory of throwing it in the trash. I think I actually had to break them to make sure I wouldn't be tempted. Um, but I think, you get some days you just get frustrated and, Matt, being, kind of like pissed at myself saying, come on, you don't need these. And leaning for me also, I didn't ask about the facilitators yet, kind of talking about barriers, but for me, my partner, my friends and family, really, really motivated me. They guilted me a lot, and it wasn't just one guilt trip, took a lot for me for me to be motivated. But I think that was definitely part of the reason that got me to throw that emergency pack away.
And that kind of brings in one of the questions that I had on the list. How did your family and friends support you specifically? I know there's a lot of nagging going on out there from our loved ones. They have the best intentions. And sometimes you're just like, stop. I know this, right? I know. And one of the big things that we always encourage loved ones and caretakers and family members is maybe not so much going, oh, you're smoking again, but more of like, hey, I've noticed you haven't smoked. Way to go. What's working for you? How can I support you? Staying on that positive side versus like, oh, you shouldn't be smoking. Because I think every single vapor smoker, most of them, know that, I really don't need to be doing this, but I am doing it, right? Yeah. How'd your family support you, Mindy? Or friends?
I don't think they did. So I had relocated to Virginia about 3 years ago. So all of my people and family are like down in Georgia, like the deep south. So really our communication is through texting. So I don't know if my brother even knows I quit. Or any of, I know one sister knows that I quit because she's been flip-flopping back and forth between quit and not quit and picking it up and not picking it up. I'm like, ooh, slippery slip, girl. But when I quit, I didn't even tell my boyfriend I had quit. And I remember going in the garage and I had an attitude about something, probably stupid. Because it was like the first day or two. So I was like, oh, high strung, just attitude coming. He's like, dude, why don't you just go have a freaking cigarette? Go smoke or something. I'm like, really? Because I'm trying to quit. He's like, oh, I didn't realize that. I was like, you didn't notice that I haven't been smoking? It's like, oh, great to see that. Nobody noticed. I'm like, that was a wrong attitude to have
Mm. Mm.
because they can't support, they don't know.
Right, right. And there's a lot of people that I talk to that are like they don't want to let anybody know because I think the big thing too is the word failure, right? Like, oh, I
Mhm.
failed. And I just think that word needs to be removed from any quit journey because it's not a failure. Again, if you can re-look at the slip, the setback, whatever it may be, it's not a failure, it's a learning opportunity. And I know that being able to pause, reflect on it, observe yourself with love and kindness and go, okay, how can I move forward through this better the next time X, Y, and Z happens? So
Mhm.
yeah. And any quit is individual, right, Mindy? It's like, no, you're quitting for you. Caroline, I'm quitting for me, right? Like you and being able to focus on you, I think, is really important on any quit journey. Was there any aha moments where you're like, I got this? What pops into your mind for those aha, I can do this moments?
For me, it was kind of like I think you had said it was like an internal mantra that I made for myself, where it was just like, it's my choice. It's my choice to smoke or not smoke. So whenever I felt like I wanted to go smoke, it's like, it's my choice. Which one am I going to pick?
Right,
I
right.
really made myself accountable.
I love it. Can you share your mantra exactly? Do you remember what it was? Your internal repetitive mantra?
Yeah, it's my choice.
My choice. There you go. There you go. Nice. My
I love
mantra was find the strength to be strong, find the strength to be strong. And I just would repeat that over and over and then redirect my brain. Yeah. What about you, Caroline? What's your aha?
Well, you made me think of a mantra that someone shared with me, and I definitely use it, and I also tell other people in my life who are trying to quit. And it said, she said, always think about surfing the urge. So whenever I would feel it, I would think about that and just think, just surf it. It's going to be over soon. That urge will go away, and that was helpful. That was really helpful for me. Just
Nice. And
because
I
it
love
doesn't.
that because it's very mental. It's like you could imagine yourself just riding it out, right? You're like, this shall pass. And I think a lot of times people forget that if that urge is like heightened, go, 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 believe it or not, in time, it really does go away. It does go away,
Yep.
but it doesn't feel like it sometimes when it's like this high, right? Um,
And that, yeah, and I think that's what's shocking is that over time, those urges do go away. Like
yeah,
I won't say I never get one. Because I do, and even I get urges for new things. I see like, ooh, that looks different, exciting to try. But
right.
but it gets so much easier to say no.
True, true. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've noticed with all of the hundreds of people that I work with is that when they can recognize that the urge is there and they can say to themselves, this shall pass, And then they recognize that maybe the urge originally was 4 or 5 minutes. And then as they're continuing to work through those urges, it actually goes away quicker. So when it hits, it's not going to last as long. It's like the time starts to get smaller and smaller the more that you practice working through those urges and cravings. Yeah.
So
Sweet.
true.
And what were some of your specific strategies? I know I heard the mantra, kind of internal dialogue. Was there any other strategies, like any breathing techniques or anything that you used to help you navigate your cravings to not smoke?
For me, for the first 3 days, because it wasn't my first or second or third or probably even 10th time trying to quit. I had found that, excuse me, over the past quits, that the first 3 days were critical. That is when the urges were the strongest and the irritability came out. And it's just like, if I block myself off, I'm minimizing anything that could make me want to go light one up or anything. So I would try to like stay in my room, find something and binge watch it and just be in my little cave for about 3 days, which is kind of hard with kids and animals, but you got to take time out to do that.
Right.
But that really helped.
Nice. I know I had a patient tell me that they quit during a storm. It was like horrible and they couldn't drive to go get new cigarettes. So they just hunkered down for the weekend. And by Monday, they were like, okay, I don't need to go buy that pack. Right. What about you, Caroline?
Yeah, I was thinking about in grad school specifically, I had to find some new ways to deal with my stress and anxiety. Really, and I remember again, I don't think we were talking about mindfulness or meditation then, but I remember laying down on the floor of my office to breathe and just close my eyes and try to like just calm myself down. Because I needed to do something I had to go take an exam. And I remember I was like, I can't go like this. I have to try something else to get there. And it helped. I mean, it wasn't perfect. But I think, wow, like that was a good step, a good way to, and if I'd known, some of the things I know now, probably could have done some things more effectively to get there, but it was a good start.
It worked for you. And that's the
Mhm.
key is that
Mhm.
on any quit journey, you've got to find what works for you. I know for a lot of people, box breathing, if you have never heard of box breathing, that technique is as one of my patients said, oh, it's like smoking. He's like, well, what is smoking anyway? Smoking is taking some deep breaths, holding it, and exhaling. So for those of you that don't know box breathing, what you do is you inhale for 4, you hold the inhale for 4, and then you exhale for 4 and hold that exhale for 4. And I had a woman the other day, she's now a few months quit, and she said the box breathing helped. She goes, because she was breathing and she was counting. So it helped her brain kind of pivot away from the craving and the urge. She was able to focus on her breathing and the counting. So do whatever it takes to help you quit. If you could tell your younger self anything, what would you say to your younger self? I guess it's almost like what are you saying to your kids in a sense?
Don't smoke.
Yeah, I think about both my parents were former smokers, and they told me the only reason they quit was because they got pregnant with me. They tried to quit together tons of times and never took. And I remember them telling me, "Don't do it. Don't smoke. It's not worth it." But I didn't listen. I didn't really care. I did it
Right.
anyway. So, I, but I don't know. I'd like to think that I'm gonna try to educate my kids as much as I can and try to share my journey with them more. I think maybe that's something they shared with me, but I'm hopeful that, more information and will help my kids make better decisions, not pick
Right.
up. I have a feeling if anything, they're going to try to pick up vapes. So I got to be ready for that.
Right.
I don't know. How old are your kids, Mindy?
My stepson is 16, my daughter is about to be 13, and then my stepdaughter is about to be 11.
A little bit older.
They're
Okay.
at the age where they'll be exposed to the vapes for sure.
Yeah, because they're already talking like kids at school are constantly getting caught in the bathroom vaping and things like that. And I like to think that, even though I didn't quit for them necessarily, they were a reason that I wanted to quit. And they saw my journey through it and they saw the struggle that it was. And I don't think they really think about like, oh, well, mom quit smoking. But I think when they're older, they're really going to appreciate that thought that I had done that and they were around to see the struggle. My daughter, she'd been around for several quit attempts. And she's like, oh, you're going to get angry. She's like, I'm just going to stay away from you. It's like, I don't want it to be like that,
Right.
That's not how I ever wanted to be a parent. Like, oh, the kid wants to avoid you because you're going to have an attitude. Mm-mm. No. So yeah, I'm not going back to smoking because I don't want to have.
There's a really good couple apps out there I just wanted to share because I think sometimes too it's like teaching our kids and our grandkids some healthy coping skills, right? When kids are feeling anxious or feeling stressed, which they do, is being able to maybe sit down with them and do a 5 minute or even a 3 minute guided meditation on YouTube. Find something. There's an app called Calm, CALM, that's really good. There's a wonderful app called Healthy Minds. And what they do is it brings the science behind what's going on with our brain, and then they have you do a couple little activities to learn some skills and tools. And I think that's key to relapse prevention is recognizing your triggers, knowing when you're at that tipping point, right? And working on finding the tools and the skills to help you not go buy that pack of cigarettes or bum that cigarette from somebody. Let me ask you this, being that we're talking about different ages and vaping and such, do you feel like there is better quit strategies out there based on a person's age? And if you heard of anything else that's out there that you appreciate or your family has heard or used?
I like that there's more medications, I guess, and different nicotine replacement therapies for people now than what there used to be.
Yeah.
But with the younger population that's smoking and wanting to quit, I've seen and noticed that they're turning more towards vaping to quit smoking. And it's like, well, is that really better? If you look at the science, general consensus is no, it's just as bad. My best friend's husband decided he was going to quit smoking and started vaping. And she was telling me some concerns that she had about, she felt like he got stuck. And I asked her, I was like, well, where's he smoking at? Is he only smoking outside still? She's like, God, no. He's
Yeah.
vaping in bed. He's vaping in the front room. He's vaping in the car. He's vaping everywhere. She's like, he's constantly on the vape. I was like, yeah. Like, you might want to have a talk with him about that because did he really decrease how much he's smoking? He's not smoking a cigarette, but now he's vaping all the time.
Right. And I think a lot of times people don't understand is that when you're constantly on it, constantly taking a hit throughout the day, it's no longer taking a smoking break, right? It is just 24/7 hitting your vape. And oftentimes with my vapors that I work with, I say you've got to first not put it on you in arm's reach. Take a point to go outside and do your vape like you would your cigarette, and really be conscious of when you're vaping and when you're puffing on it. Especially nowadays, because vapes they use the nicotine salts, and they changes the pH, so it's so smooth and easy to go down. It and some of the patients, when they tell me how much they're vaping and I calculate it, it can equate to like 4 or 5 packs of cigarettes worth of nicotine a day without even knowing it. And so that's one of the big things that I say to our vapors, like, hey, pay attention to when you're vaping. If you're at a 5%, 6%, let's get you down to 3%. Let's get you down to 1.5%. And then let's get you off of it altogether. But that is a really behavior change that I think is very difficult, because it's constantly in the hand and constantly being brought up to the mouth many more times than you would smoking a pack of cigarettes, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, and I was gonna say one of the problems we have with the treatments out there, right? We have access, there's FDA approved or authorized, medications, and we know a lot about counseling for cigarette smoking. But unfortunately, the evidence for how to quit vaping is still like in its infancy, right? We have a few papers and reports coming out about some of the text message based programs like This Is Quitting, and some other, and there's apps out there, and there's more, we're learning more about how to help people quit vapes, and seeing that, NRT might work for people as well that are quitting vapes, which makes sense. But we need more. And I think that's a bit scary for people who are vaping and thinking about, well, now what do I do? How do I quit? And I don't know how you feel. Like, do you feel like you have the resources you need to help them? Do you feel like you need more, or they need more support?
Yeah. And again, it goes back to really digging in. Why are you constantly hitting it? Are you bored? Is it in your hand? There's so many different reasons why people are puffing on it all the time. And I often tell a lot of my vapors, hey, there's like secondhand smoke, there's secondhand aerosol. And in that secondhand aerosol, there's chemicals, there's nicotine, and it's really important not to do it around your kids, because they're inhaling all of that. And I think a lot of times people just forget that. And I always encourage, step away, do your vape, and come back in, because it makes it more conscious. I know we're running up on time, so I wanted to, first of all, just touch base with Nicole and see if there were any questions or thoughts and comments to be shared. And if not, I have another couple questions.
Think we have any, I didn't see any in the chat or the Q&A. I think Gina has some things to say, but Gina, I think we have maybe a few more minutes for Neely to continue, right?
Yes, definitely, Neely. Please ask a couple more questions.
Okay. Oof, where to begin? Well, out of this, just kind of talking through everything, what would you share, like Mindy and Caroline, what would you share to your loved one or a friend who is struggling on quitting, or just finds that they're running into these barriers, these internal barriers? What would be some of your suggestions and advice that you would give them?
It's going to be hard, but it does get better, and it will get easier over time. You're never going to be 100% recovered. You're still going to get those urges, and you might have lingering health effects, but it's what you're doing now that's going to impact
Right. Yeah. Nice.
Whenever I have a few family members that still smoke. And whenever I see them, I always kind of hear what's going on and hear how they're doing. But I always kind of mention, it's never too late. It is never too late to quit. And I promise you're going to feel better. You're going to and just like Mindy said, it's going to be hard, but it gets easier. And yeah, and I also come do the same thing. I ask them like, how, what is it that's keeping you here? What are you doing? What triggers you? I try to like think about for me, it was identifying those triggers and recognizing them, trying to stay away from them, really, just not deal to me, like, because I feel like the longer I stayed away from those triggers, it got easier when they came up again.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize this too, is when that nicotine attaches to those receptors in our brain, it releases feel-good chemicals like dopamine. And I didn't realize this until I studied this, is that when we drink water, very simply, it also releases dopamine in the brain. And so I really encourage people when they're on a quit journey, if they're not drinking water, I encourage them to increase their water intake. Because it's helping the brain also feel better. So the more that we can do to help our brain and our body, the higher chances we have of quit and staying quit. Oh, and I had one more question here. Oh, and now of course I forgot. Oh, it went away. Oh, so now that you're quit, we're all quit. What do you do to help you stay quit? Like, I know those cravings and urges still can happen, but is there anything specific that you do when you are faced with those triggers to help you get through those moments in time? I know, Caroline, you said remove myself from the trigger, right? That's good.
I mean, I think what we talked about already. I think about why I'm doing this. And for me, what really got me to the next step in my journey was my partner. And so thinking about him and, I don't want to have to talk to him about, I would avoid, sharing, hey, I slipped, kind of seeing that disappointment for me. That was important for me. And also his how proud he was when I was able to quit. So I do, and I still think about that. That's still a motivator for me.
Nice, nice.
So whenever I find myself battling like an urge to stay quit, let's put it that way, to stay quit, I'll pull up the app on my phone that I've been using to track everything. And it shows like the time and the health and the money and all that spent. I'm like, I'm not messing that up. So
Right.
that's my little go-to. It's not like remove myself from the situation. I just look at my little app. I'm like, oh, I can keep doing it.
Yes, I can totally relate. I found one of the things I do recommend those that are on their quit journey is find an app that works for them. And like you, the app that I had showed me how many cigarettes I hadn't smoked, how much money I was saving, and what was going on with the health of my body. And when you're like 500, man, I haven't smoked 500 cigarettes. Why would I want to break that? Why would I want to start over? It's so hard sometimes. And so I know I too used my app a good year after I quit to just kind of keep me, I got this. I got this. Right.
And
Yep,
there's
like right now on my app, it says I have saved $3,504 in the last year, and I have not smoked 10,013 cigarettes.
Woo! That's awesome.
So, love the app. And
Right?
it's called
What's the
Easy
name of
Quit
the
Stop
app?
Smoking.
Sorry, can you say that again? I
Easy,
think I talked over you.
Easy Quit Stop Smoking. It's got like a little green guy karate chopping or kicking a cigarette in half
there's a
on
lot
the
out
Google
there
App
and they're
Store.
free. They don't
Yeah.
have to be paid because it is just kind of like a simple. Sometimes they might have an ad.
Do you have to pay for yours, Mindy, or is your app free?
Oh, it's free. I'm not
Yeah.
about paying for it. I'm not about that life. I don't know if you can see the little. Oh no,
Oh,
that's
there
not
you go.
come through at
Yeah,
all.
kind of.
Nope.
Yeah.
I was going to say I
Maybe
know
you
that
could
there's
read.
ones that are promoted by the National Cancer Institute, smokefree.gov. They have some free ones that I'm pretty sure have those features as well. I think it's
And I think too, one of the things kind of going back to get the support each state has a 1-800-QUIT line, and each state offers certain nicotine replacement therapy. And I do, please nod yes, no team, but Virginia is offering 2 weeks of free patches. Is that correct?
We do offer 2 weeks of free NRT, yes.
And they
And
can
it
get
does depend on
combination.
the situation, yes.
Yeah. And if you are self-identified with a behavioral health history, you can also get combination, right? Gum and patches, is that
Gum or patch right now.
gum or patch? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I always tell, let's take advantage of that, the free products, because they can become very expensive in the beginning of anybody's quit. So if there's a way to get that. Well, I think we are about wrapped up. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you, Caroline and Mindy, for sharing your story. And I just wanted to then celebrate all of us, right? Celebrate those that have quit, celebrate those that are currently working on quitting, and those that are like, maybe I can do this, right? We celebrate them too, because you never know what's going to work until you try. And keep trying, try all the time. It's like you said, it feels amazing not to have to live with that monkey on my back all the time. Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Neely, for kind of hosting this and being the facilitator. You do an amazing job. And also your personal story as well, right? That you shared. And it really is so inspirational. Mindy and Caroline, we're so grateful that you came on this morning to kind of share your stories. You're both so strong. You're so inspirational. I think just hearing your story, each story is so individual, right? Because you said a lot of different things about how you quit, what made you quit, but a lot of things are very common about your stories, right? So what you share with your stories can help so many people out there that are struggling to quit as well, right? So just taking the time this morning, we are so appreciative of that. Thank you so much. And we're kind of celebrating this week, as Neely said as well, the Great American Smokeout, which is this Thursday. And our program is launching a new campaign. And I think we have a slide to show you. So if you're on the call this morning and you're a tobacco treatment specialist, if you're a community health worker, a provider, we want to launch a campaign that gets people to share their stories, just like Mindy did this morning, just like Caroline did and Neely did. Share the stories, and we're going to kind of you have to fill out this survey, share your story, and then we may take quotes from the story. If you share pictures, we may make pictures of the stories, with your permission, of course, and get it out to the state. Really, this is Virginia residents. And we just want to make sure people realize that there are people out there that are quitting, that can help them with sharing what they're going through. So Mindy and Caroline, Neely, go on here and see if you'd be willing to share your story here. We want to send this to all of our health districts, to the providers, to share, and then make people realize there are people out there with the same situation. So please, we will be sharing this information. We'll be sharing the survey. We will be having some social media graphics as well, and we will put that in the follow-up email that's going out right after this Tobacco Free Tuesday webinar. So as many people as you can, get the word out, share the story, share the survey, and hopefully we will have some stories that are coming in from people just like yourselves that are willing to share their stories about how they quit. The challenges, the good parts, the reasons why they smoked, whatever they may be, we're hoping to really hear from them in Virginia. Please join us as well in January. I think Nicole put on here that we're now going to do 6 webinars. We're doing every other month, January, March, and so forth. Tobacco Free Tuesdays coming up in 2025. You can go ahead and register for those webinars so that we will get a reminder when they are, when we have announced the speakers for those. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you for the panel. thank you for Mindy and Caroline and Neely for sharing your stories. We're just really, as we go into this Thanksgiving week, next week, just very grateful for what you have done, what all of you on the call are doing in Virginia to really work with helping everyone quit this addiction, right? And better their health. So thank you. Enjoy your Thanksgiving with family or friends. Have a safe one, and we will hopefully see you back here in January. Have a good one. Bye, everyone.